Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I'm an engineer who works for technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about it at teachthegeek.com. Again, that is teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Ginger Scoggins. She is the co-owner of Engineer Designs Incorporated, a consulting engineering firm. They do mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection work. She's also president-elect of the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers. That's ASHRAE for short. I highly doubt everyone says the whole thing. I'm interested to learn more about her journey into engineering, the founding of her firm, and her involvement with ASHRAE. Welcome to Teach the Geek interviews, Ginger.
Thanks, Neil. Happy to be here.
So from the bit of research I did on you, I saw that you got a degree in mechanical engineering. What motivated you to get that degree?
Oh, that's a good question. So I started as a math major. I was going to be an actuary, and found out, halfway through that you really needed a degree in statistics, which my school didn't offer. And so I had a really good friend in mechanical engineering, and so I decided to switch over to mechanical engineering after being a math major. So it was a good switch. I'm glad I did it.
But then you didn't stop there. I saw you got an MBA too. So what was the motivation to get the MBA?
Well, starting a business, right? So getting your MBA is kind of helpful in that regard because it teaches you things that engineering school doesn't teach you. I never actually finished my MBA. I started it. And then I had my daughter, and then I had my second daughter. And after that, I kind of never finished the MBA, but it was really good what I did take because it does teach you things engineering school doesn't teach you, like marketing and business plans and business development.
Well, we have something in common there, Ginger, because I also started a degree that I didn't finish. I started a PhD program. I only did a year of it, but I have no regrets of leaving, though.
Right.
I will say that. But I'm really glad that you got something from the MBA program while you were in it. So,
Yep.
So I'm kind of curious. So you get an engineering degree. You have some MBA work. Although I don't know where, what span that is, or the gap in between getting the mechanical engineering degree and the MBA work. What kind of work did you do once you graduated from school from mechanical engineering?
Exactly what I do now. I just did it for other companies. So I'm a consulting engineer and design, systems for buildings, things you guys, most people don't even think about in buildings, right? That have to work, like your air conditioning systems, your lighting systems, your plumbing systems, your fire protection systems, all of those that have to be designed. They're all designed by engineers that work with architects and owners, right? And there's all different kinds of engineers that work in building sciences. And so that's where I got started in the building sciences group, which is, HVAC and plumbing and fire protection. After I got out of school, and that's what I've done ever since.
Okay. And what was the motivation to go down that path? I mean, mechanical engineering is pretty diverse. You can go down a number of paths.
It is. I think that was kind of the first area that I graduated in the 80s. There was a recession going on. So, getting a job, you were just happy to get a job. And so this was like, and I had taken some classes in college on thermal load calculations, things you do for buildings. So I think that probably helped me get a job.
All right. But then, I did mention in the intro about your firm. What was the motivation to stop working for other people and start your own firm?
So I had my daughter. And my daughters are really close. They're 15 months apart. So then I had my second daughter, and I wanted some flexibility. It was different in the 80s. There wasn't as much flexibility as there is today. You didn't work from home. There was a tight schedule. You had to be in the office at certain times. And I was like, I needed more flexibility with two small kids. So I started picking up some work on my own, and it kind of grew from there. Once I had a decent workload, then I quit my job, and then I started just working from home, raising kids and working. And then it grew from there. Once the kids grew up, the business grew up with it. And so that's been 25 years ago.
So if things had been different back in the 80s where you could have had that flexibility while still having a job, would your business have ever been formed?
I don't think so. I don't consider myself a huge entrepreneur. My father was, and so we had a pretty interesting time growing up with businesses that failed and started and failed and started. And it's just like, if you grow up with that, you kind of want some security in life. And so I was pretty happy with security. And I had it a little easier too in being able to start my own business because my husband had a job and had benefits. So it was a lot easier than probably if I had been a single breadwinner and had to support a family by starting a business. That's a lot more difficult.
Yeah, for sure. I also mentioned in the intro that you're the president-elect of ASHRAE. What motivated you to become a member or just become involved with the group?
Yeah, so ASHRAE is a great organization. There's 50 something thousand members, 52,000 members, 130 countries. Just really represents our industry well. I got involved in ASHRAE and with one of my first jobs. My boss was actually president of our local chapter, took me to a meeting, and I took a bunch of us to a meeting. And it's a volunteer organization, so you get involved, and I look at it kind of like church. If I don't get involved, I don't go. So I got involved at the chapter level, and that was probably 30 years ago. You meet a bunch of people in your industry. It's a great networking opportunity, and then those people grow up with you as you grow up in ASHRAE. So I've gotten more out of ASHRAE than I've ever put into it, and I've put 30 years of work into it. So it's a really good organization.
As you're a president-elect now, what plans do you have for the organization once you become president?
So there's a lot of things focused on tackling our industry these days, things that we've got to tackle. We've got a climate crisis, and buildings contribute significantly to carbon emissions in the global climate crisis. We've got a workforce development challenge where we need people in our industry that understand how to tackle this climate crisis. There's equity, diversity, inclusion issues. You pick it. There's a ton of issues to focus on next year when I'm president, and so we're currently working through which one's going to be the major focus.
Nice. When I first started this podcast, Ginger, it was because of me wanting to speak to other people that come from the technical fields about presenting in front of people. And even before that, it was based on my own struggles having to do it. My first job, I didn't have to do any presenting at all. It was my second job where I was a project lead, where I had to get up in front of management every month to give these presentations about project status updates. And they were terrible at first, but I got a lot better over time because I didn't want to look like a bozo every time I had to talk in front of the CEO. And that just seems like how it was. When did you realize that getting better or just being proficient at speaking in front of others could be a benefit to you?
Well, I think that was one of the good things that ASHRAE did for me, because as I moved up in the organization, I got a lot more opportunities and challenges to speak in front of people, like being president of the chapter. You have to run the chapter meetings, and you can have 60, 70 people sitting there. And so, I think you do get better over time. The more it's like anything else, the more you do it, the more comfortable you are doing it. I find that I'm better at speaking in public if I really am confident in the subject that I'm speaking on. If I try to wing it, I don't do as well. But if I've researched and I understand the topic and I'm really passionate about it, I do a much better job of speaking in public. The other thing about owning a business is we have to interview for projects. So, we have to go before interview committees. We have to be able to speak the fact that we can do the project, that we know what we're doing. And you have to be confident in that to be able to sell that work. So, that's taken some time, but I've owned this business now for 25 years. So I've definitely gotten better at it over time.
When you mentioned not wanting to wing presentations, I'm firmly with you on that, Ginger, because I have a friend and he makes fun of me every now and then for the fact that I like to practice my presentations before I give them. He's more of a winger, I guess you could say. And I think you could definitely tell the difference between the two of us, because when he talks, it comes out as it comes out. And so you don't necessarily put the information in the best way. But if you actually had some time to figure out what point do I want to make first and, second and third, making those kind of decisions. I think your presentations are a lot better. And so the fact that he makes fun of me doesn't really change the fact that I still practice my presentations. It doesn't bother me at all. And I firmly take your point about getting more confident with the practice as well. And then also especially with your work, having to go up in front of committees to get work. Well, you better prepare confident. Or if not, then it's like, no, we ain't giving it to her.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think there's a happy medium. I like to be really prepared with my subject matter. I like to sometimes be able to wing the verbiage that I'm saying, because you do want it to come across as natural. You don't want to look like you're reading the entire time you're having a discussion. People relate to you better if they feel like they're having a conversation. So there's a happy medium between being prepared, but not being so prepared that you can't ad lib when you need to ad lib. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm definitely not a fan of memorizing every word you're going to say, because I have a poor memory. So even if I were to try to do it, it wouldn't come out so well. So typically how I like to practice is there's certain points that I want to make and in a certain order, and I practice it until I'm making the points in the order consistently. And then
Yeah.
once I'm able to do that, then I'm ready. I'm ready for the stage. I'm ready to get in front of the people.
Yeah. I like to have bullet points. I like to have just kind of as reminders of, okay, I got to make sure I hit this topic. I got to make sure I hit this topic. So I like to have bullet points.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of bullet points too.
Yeah.
When it comes to just getting in front of people and speaking, is that something you've always been good at? And if not, what'd you do to get better at it?
No, I could tell you that no, I am not a natural extrovert when it comes to speaking in front of people. Like I said, I think you just get better the more you do it, the better you get. It's interesting. I've sat in a lot of interviews where I've watched other people interview, and some of the people you think that would be really good at it surprise you when they're not. And some of the people that you think would not be good at it surprise you when they are. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. You can see some people just come alive in front of other people, and they love interviewing and being the center of the attention. And some people really struggle with it. So it's having some grace when you're watching it and realizing that it may not be a natural habit for some people.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely count myself as an introvert, very much so. But if I have something that I think is important to say, then I'm more than willing to get up in front of people to say it, because I just don't want to stay in my head. I want to share it with everybody. Right. It's so unfortunate with people who maybe skew more towards introversion, that they're not comfortable getting up in front of people and speaking. I would hope they were able to get over that, because then they're not sharing what they know with the world, and the world could possibly benefit from what they know.
Exactly right. And, it just seems these days we have such low tolerance for anything that's not polished and shined. And we should really recognize that a lot of people, they have a lot to share, and they may not share it the way you want to share it, but if they can share it and feel comfortable in that, that would go a long way.
100%. I mean, not everyone's trying to be the next Tony Robbins. And
right.
I don't think we would want everyone to be the next Tony Robbins, because then we wouldn't be able to distinguish anybody from him, because everyone would just be like carbon copies of him. And, carbon copies are never as good as the original anyway. You just want to become the best at presenting that you are, being true to who you are, but then also conveying the information in a way that the people that you're speaking to can really take in and understand. It's kind of it's a balance between what the people want and what you're willing to do.
That's right.
So when it comes to giving presentations, do you have a process for putting your presentations together? And if so, what is it?
I do. I really try to do an outline first of what I want to talk about, and make sure I hit those bullets in terms of what the speech is going to be, and then pull the visual presentation in after I've got that kind of in my head. I'm working right now on my presidential speech for ASHRAE for next year, and so I'm trying to make sure I get all the bullets in there that I want. There also needs to be some components that are funny, or or more they really like us to talk a little bit about ourselves as well, which I kind of struggle with. So I'm trying to figure out how to weave all this into a 30-minute presentation that is going to keep people's interest.
Okay. When do you have to give this presentation?
I have to start in the spring. We have some smaller meetings in the spring where I have, it's kind of these are dry runs for the big presentation, which happens at our meeting in June of next year.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Into the spring. So man, you really are a preparer. Good for you.
Yeah, and yeah, it's kind of, well, it's a big deal because our meeting in June, we have over 500 people in the room, and it's Facebook Live, and it's a lot. So I just want to be ready for that. So
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't doubt that you'll do a great job based on the amount of preparation. You're starting in the winter. By the time the spring's here, you'll be ready for no question.
They might have learned already not to have a president that wings it. So they tell us to start early. So.
Oh, nice. So that's smart on their part, I guess.
Yeah.
So before you give presentations, do you ever get nervous? And if so, how do you deal with your nerves?
Oh, yeah. You know, it's funny, and I maybe have a kind of a unique background there. My dad was actually a singer, so he loved being in the spotlight and he loved getting up on stage. But my mother was the opposite, and she didn't like any of that. So it's kind of a marrying of the two. I'm really nervous until I get on stage, and then after I get on stage, I'm usually fine. So I know that about myself now. So I just work through those nerves, and then I get on stage and I kind of enjoy it. So it's kind of a different, it's just, you got to work through the nerves in the beginning.
Yeah. You know, when it comes to nerves, I don't really believe anybody who says they don't get nervous before they give presentations. And if they don't, I take that as a sign they didn't really care about what they're talking about. I'm a firm believer.
I can tell you, my father is one who he can get up and wing anything, and he's perfectly comfortable in the environment where he's the center of attention. Yeah. And never seems to get nervous. And he's been doing it a long time, but some people love that adrenaline and love being up on stage in front of other people.
Well, you know what? It actually, when I think about it, it's how you phrase it or how you look at it. You either look at it as nervousness or you look at it as excitement, because I think the body responds to both the same. So right. It's kind of just, right. Are you looking at it as a negative or as a positive? But I firmly believe that if you are going up in front of people and you don't feel anything, it's because you don't care about what you're talking about. But if you're actually feeling something, and either whether you call it excitement, anxiety, nervousness, whatever you call it, you're feeling something because you actually care about the outcome.
Right.
So yeah, wonderful. Do you have it, if you were to offer one tip to people who want to get better, become more effective at giving presentations in front of others, what would it be?
I would say for me, what makes me feel better about giving presentations in front of others is to know my subject matter. And so if I was to give one tip to someone who's giving a presentation, because I think one of the things that you don't know when you give presentations is what kind of questions am I going to get? Am I going to be able to answer the questions that I get, right? Am I going to look like an idiot up there when I get questions and I don't know the answers? So know your subject matter, be confident in your subject matter. And I think that goes a long way to confidence in your presentation.
Yeah, I think you're right too. That's definitely, at least when I first started giving presentations, that was definitely a concern of mine, getting questions that I didn't know the answer to. But what I started doing was just visualizing beforehand, before I give presentations, and just thinking about what kind of questions could I possibly get, and figuring out what those answers would be. And then also it was, even if I were to get a question that I didn't know the answer to, being comfortable enough to say I don't know, but then actually getting the answer to it at some point. And that actually helps improving your presentations going forward, because now you can visualize those questions too, and those answers too, because now you have them. I know when I first started giving presentations, I used to lie. Even if I didn't know the answer, I'd make something up and hope they wouldn't catch me. But then when they started catching me, I realized I probably shouldn't be doing this anymore.
Yeah, no, I think that's a confidence thing too. When you feel comfortable enough to say, I don't know the answer, but I'll get back to you on that. And I think that people appreciate you being honest and saying that you don't know, but that you'll figure it out.
Yeah, I can recall going to a number of conferences back when I used to work as an engineer, and it would be interesting to see some of the exchanges between the person giving the presentation and the people in the audience, because at least in those situations, oftentimes the people that giving presentations and those in the audience, they might be, I guess you could call them competitors, because a lot of these were academics. So you would have somebody on the stage who's an academic, and then maybe someone from a competing lab in the audience, and they'd be asking them these questions that you would think, wow, that's pretty detailed. Like, did you look into this? Did you look into that? And it's just like, it's interesting to see those type of exchanges, to say the least.
Yeah.
So this has been a great conversation, Ginger. Thank you again for being a guest. How can people get in touch with you?
So they can get in touch with me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, which probably is the best way to do that.
Excellent. Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson, founder of Teach the Geek, and you can learn more about it at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Ginger.
Thank you, Neil.